Bringing you the best local talk radio shows, Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7 FM, WFBT, Carolina Beach.
The information on this program is intended to share the experiences others have had in battling addiction and to let you know there is hope to recover, no matter how bad things may seem. Please do not change any program you are on, especially if under medical supervision, without the approval of your doctor, counselor, or other professional treatment.
All that is lost ever be found? Could a garden come up from this ground at all?
Well, good evening and welcome to Recovering Hope. Yes, he does. And welcome. My name is Marcley, and a pleasure to be here with you again this Wednesday evening. If you're just tuning in for the first time, I don't know where you've been for the past 5 months, but now you know what to do on Wednesday evenings between 6 and 7. We're here to help anybody struggling with the battle of addiction. And when I say anybody, it could be the individual himself or herself or their families. Part of my background is we had addiction hit our family pretty hard, right smack between the eyes, starting about 11, 12 years ago. And it was a tough battle. We didn't know where to turn. We didn't know who we could talk to. And what I'm hoping to accomplish here is that you're not in that same predicament. And, there are many, many resources out there. And my friend Wayne Ray is joining me here with the broadcast, and Wayne is the owner and founder of a community of recovery residences known as Launchpad, and that's just one of many excellent resources that are here in town. If you'd like to know some more of them, and I just say some more of them, our website has a list of local, regional, and some national places that can help you or your loved ones. And that website is recoveringhope.org. You can also email me through that site if you have any questions or comments that you would like to possibly share, or you may not want to call. If you would prefer a simple phone call, the number for Prodigal Recovery, which is our recovery residence, is 338-3795. And I mention it that way because when you call that number, the caller ID just says Prodigal Recovery. When that happens, I stop what I'm doing and I answer that phone. Not that I don't answer for other people, but just wanted you to know that's pretty much an anonymous phone number, 338-3795. Would love to help you if we can. Want to say a quick shout out to my friend Derek. Derek is my new buddy, lives in town. Unfortunately, he doesn't get to leave there for a while. He is incarcerated, and we've been pen pals lately, and it's inspiring to me, the things that he shares with me, and I think that I may share a few positive things with Derek. And in Derek's second to the last letter, because I just got another nice one today, he gave me the hope verse for today, which is from Romans 15. Now may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, so that you will abound in hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. Thanks for that, Derek. I really appreciate you, man. And reading your last letter that I just got today, you're definitely on fire for God. You feel like, he's got you where he's got you for a reason, and it's just very inspiring to hear your positivity, even though you're confined to those quarters for a while longer. If you or someone would like to help Derek, I've sent him a couple of books and might do some other things. But if you would also like to maybe kick in, send Derek something, you can call me at that number, 338-3795, and I can share his information. There's a number that's associated with his name that you'll need if you would like to perhaps send him something, or whether it's money, food. I don't know if you can send food. He's hoping that visitation will be open in a couple of months. But anyway, you're an inspiration to me, Derek, and thank you and your friends there that might be listening. And that's a wonderful thing. Oh, yeah, congratulations to Alex. Alex is our house manager at Prodigal Recovery, and tomorrow Alex closes on his house. Man, that's great, buddy. I really appreciate that, and I think that the gentleman at Prodigal Recovery might be watching. It's in the rules now. They have to watch on Wednesday nights.
So he's going to a halfway house to a whole house.
He's going to a halfway. There you go. Yeah. There you go. Yes, sir. And yeah, man, he's excited. He's been a great manager, and really appreciate his time and everything that he's done there. And we're going to miss him, but he's not going to go too far, so he'll still be around once in a while. But congratulations, Alex. Appreciate that, and hello to the rest of the guys, whoever is sitting there listening and watching this program. I did this last week. I want to do it again. Something I found in my file. What is hope? This is, I forget exactly where I got this from. I've got stuff all over the internet. This is one person's definition. Hope is a belief and expectation are the key elements of hope. Elements that can block pain and have important effects on both physical and physiological processes. Hope has the ability to help people heal. Instead of wishing for something to happen, hope is solid, concrete evidence that something will happen. Hope allows people to approach the challenges of life with a positive mindset, a feeling of desire for certain things to happen. Hope keeps people going. And I think that pretty much explains why we're here, what we're doing. There is hope, folks. Trust me when I tell you that as long as there's breath in your lungs or that of your loved one, there is hope for recovery. And if that breath is gone from that of your loved one, well, there's a lot of hope to help others. And that's where a lot of people put their energies after they have had such a tragedy. And there's another verse that I looked at during the week in my studies. This is out of Psalm 50. God says, "Call upon me on the day of trouble. I will rescue you, and you will honor me." And when I read that, I thought, boy, I must have shown God a lot of honor over the years, because I did call upon him on days of trouble, and I didn't know that that's honoring to God. It's that's kind of amazing. So these are just some of my thoughts and notes that I collect as the week goes by. And speaking of thoughts, here's one that, I'm a little bit of a corny guy. If you've been listening to me for a while, Wayne already knows that. But I call it my maple tree example. Actually, it's some hot tub thoughts. I get some of my best thoughts in my hot tub. And after Hurricane Florence, I'm sitting in my hot tub, and there's a maple tree right in the corner of my yard that I'm very close to in the tub. And after the winds blew off all the leaves, took a little while, but that was September. What did the tree do? It's time to grow new leaves. It didn't sag and die and say, oh no, I can't, get new leaves again until the spring. It grew new leaves. It kind of fought back. It said, no, this isn't going to keep me down, And then it was the same morning. I think I was getting out of the tub. I see a flock of geese flying overhead. And you know how they fly? In the V formation. And the goose out front takes most of the work. He's breaking the wind for the guys behind him. When he gets tired, he falls back and somebody else leads. So sometimes we'll lead, sometimes we'll follow. If you've got the strength to lead, get out there and lead. And when it's your turn to follow, take a break and just follow along. I want to say a little something about last week's guests. We had the pleasure of speaking with Michael Gray, who formed the Actis Foundation as a result of his daughter's passing from fentanyl poisoning, and his friend and partner, Matt Capilouto. they were both instrumental in submitting a bill out in California, SB 350. We've spoken about this the past couple of weeks, and we've spoken some length last week. Sadly, the first committee that SB 350 went to got turned down. Doesn't mean it's over for good, but it's just not looking good right now, and that's very, very unfortunate. And in the same news section of my notes here, the lawsuit with Purdue, anybody that follows this closely at all, looks favorable if your last name is Sackler. Yeah, unfortunately, this lawsuit against Purdue, the restructuring that they're doing in this bankruptcy case, I don't know all the facts and figures. I know our friend Ed Bish is following this very closely. Sadly, we have not had time to have Ed back on and give us the report. I've been reading some things on Facebook, but it's very unfortunate. And a few weeks ago, we spoke with the Attorney General, Josh Stein, and one of the things that he recommended that I do is, to reach out to our legislators, even our county commissioner, and just, make yourself known. And I made an effort to do that. And I was a little saddened when I went to, I'll mention his name, David Rouse's website. And, you fill out the form. They got the drop-down arrow. What's your topic? Do you know that drug addiction, nothing, not even, there was about 20 things. It's not even a topic on his website. Maybe he'll change that. I did hear back from him, and I'm not sure where that's going to go, but hopefully it will go somewhere. We're going to take our first break a little early because we have a very special guest coming on board. His name is Dr. Art Kleinschmidt. Dr. Kleinschmidt is the former White House Deputy Director of the National Drug Control Policy appointed by Donald Trump. He worked right under Trump's drug czar. He's a doctor of philosophy, a counselor, a therapist. He owned a treatment center, master's degree in substance abuse addiction / counseling, throw in an MBA in accounting, and a bachelor's degree in business management. And I spoke with Art this morning, and I told him my joke, which isn't really that funny. I said, with all those bachelor's degrees, you probably didn't stay a bachelor for long. But guys, just really nice man, give you the time of day, and not to negate in any way the degrees that he's gotten in school, to really know the intricacy of addiction. I believe his best education was probably in the streets, and I think Art's going to tell us about that as well. So we're going to take a short break here, folks, and when we come back, we'll get Art Kleinschmidt on the line. We'll be right back. Chris Baines and his team at Coldwell Banker Seacoast Advantage have been helping folks buy and sell homes and land in the area for over 20 years. With the support of a team, their clients enjoy the highest levels of success, communication, and protection. The sellers will have their properties exposed to the most people to ensure the highest sales price. The marketing they use is designed to thoroughly expose the property with virtual walkthroughs and aerial drone shots. All of this is done for maximum exposure, but to also reduce the in-person traffic in these times of COVID. Home purchasers will have an attentive agent that focuses on their needs and helps locate properties quickly to avoid missing out, as we are in such a hot market right now. Additionally, they represent buyers that decide to purchase new construction, as the on-site agents represent the builder. Chris Baines and his team know how to listen, and just as importantly, know how to negotiate for the best interests of their clients. With a consultative approach, you can be sure they will look out for the best interests of their clients, or why the vast majority of their business comes from past clients and their referrals. Check out their reviews on Zillow, Google, and Facebook. You can reach their team at 910-333-2300 or check out their website at wilmingtonarearealestate.com. When it's time to get something done and you've done your due diligence to find the best vendor, it's time to say, just do it. Well, there are a few things we need to do from time to time, and that is to move.
Whether it's moving that overstuffed garage to climate-controlled storage or moving across the nation, the company to choose is Just Move It Moving and Storage. Stetson Strickland, owner and founder of Just Move It, takes pride in his work and is hands-on with every move and offers full 100% carte blanche service where you pack and they carry. Junk removal, site cleanups, if it involves moving things, this is your one-stop company. They also give back to the community. Unwanted furniture goes into storage, and every month they donate it to those in need in the community. So, if you're ready to make that move or just get a quote, Just Move It can be reached at 910-795-7658 or on the web at movingcompanywilmingtonnc.com. Just call them.
And welcome back to Recovering Hope. My name is Mark Marcley, and thank you for tuning in. My special guest and friend Wayne Ray popped in just on his way back from Florida. Figured it, what better place to go down to the radio station. Good to see you, Wayne.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And do we have Art on the line?
I am. How you doing?
Hello, Art. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate that.
Oh, no problem. Look forward to the discussion.
Good. Before I took a break there, I gave a little bit of your background, but why don't you give us it from your perspective, if you don't mind?
No, I don't mind. I'm happy to do that. I'm born and raised in New Orleans. I guess I'll kind of go into a little bit of my some of my addictive past.
Sure.
I kind of had a couple little issues sort of growing up. I didn't do very well a lot of times with sort of authority, given some of my history. So I could bring a report card home early on, but it wouldn't be unusual for me to bring home all F's on a report card. So I didn't. I didn't graduate 8th grade, and then I failed 9th grade. But by the time I was sort of at 9th grade, I was already, drinking and smoking weed and that sort of a thing. I was at the Catholic school, but I would skip school a lot of times and then go to the store and steal stuff and sell it, and then buy weed, skip school, smoke weed. So I ended up in 9th grade, but and then from then on, my most of my youth sort of accelerated. This was back in the 80s, and the Quaaludes were popular back then, with the acid and everything. So I have a 20-year youth history going on through New Orleans, and I kind of ran around New Orleans pretty good. And I had multiple different drugs of choice over my time period, and then I was actually in the opioid crisis at the beginning of it. I wasn't aware it was the opioid crisis at the time, but I remember vividly. This was it would have been in the late 90s, right? So if you want to look at how the opioid crisis started, it started with when they in 1996 you had I think the Institute of Pain, I forgot the exact name of them, came out with the thing, the pain is the fit vital sign. So they started treating pain the pulse. And then from there, you also had OxyContin was a new drug that sort of hit the streets. And it was from the pain to the fifth vital sign type of thing where you started getting these pill mills that popped up all over the place. And I know you talked, Dan from the pharmacist. So my story kind of dovetails with his. I was a user at the time where he was like a pharmacist. And if anybody's seen The Pharmacist on Netflix, it's a great show.
Yes, it is.
The doctor in that show, she actually had competitors in New Orleans. So people were prioritizing themselves, opening up multiple clinics. And the pain medicines and the opioids and they had muscle relaxers, they had benzodiazepines, were just like became just rampant. It was like the wild, wild west. So I ended up going through that. I got pretty much incapacitated during that time period, and then I was lucky to go to treatment, and I left the city of New Orleans. That was my first time leaving, and I got sober up in Minnesota, and then I lived and worked in the recovery environment from there. I was a peer worker, and then I went back. We didn't call them peers back then. We were still doing like 12 steps. But they weren't quite as professionalized. So I was doing that while I was living in a sober house. I lived in an Oxford house. I did the whole nine. And then I went back, got a master's degree in addiction counseling. And then I worked in the addiction field up there. I worked at an adolescent prison and that sort of a thing. And then I was recruited to work in Colorado. And eventually I was living in the rural mountains. And while I was working full time, I ended up getting a PhD in psychology. And I stayed working there. And then I just luck would have it. I could tell you how it happened, but I ended up getting appointed to work at SAMHSA as a senior advisor, which is the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration. And then I was promoted and received a presidential appointment to be the deputy director at the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy. So that's kind of like a story. I could always...
Or with an 8th grade education. I don't know how you did that, Art. You went from 8th grade to a doctorate in philosophy. That's quite an accomplishment.
But my mom, it was graduation that night, and today, by the way, you're not going to... they told my mom, by the way, your kid's not going to be making it to the grad. That time, I was in summer school a lot, so if I went to classes, they let me go to 9th grade, and then the 9th grade, I didn't do much better. I had the worst there. So, but you're right. Eventually, I guess I found my footing.
Yeah. Wow. Well,
recovery for that too.
Yes, and that's one of the things that I put in my notes, and I mentioned, I wrote down, not to negate in any way the degrees that you've gotten in school, but to really know the intricacy of addiction. Your best education was probably in the streets. Would you agree?
Yes, I would say that. I talked to some professionals, great professionals like even Dr. Drew. I know you're familiar with him, but he knows what he's doing, but he's been working in the field for 30 years, right?
Right.
So, I would think where I go is having the actual, they call it lived experience, kind of goes a long way. As far as like knowing how, and I don't mind saying addict, so people don't like that, but knowing that, like, there's a whole psychology with addiction, and there's a whole lot of way that addiction's behaviorally manifested. And it's kind of hard to grasp unless you're somebody who's actually sort of done it or worked with it for a long period of time. So that's kind of like where I go. And like when I say, the reason I say like I had multiple drugs, and I did. So like every sort of drug, there's like almost like a mini culture attached to it, right? So I've seen, I could say like the meth thing, I've seen it. I did all my drugs. The cocaine scene, I know it pretty well. All that, the pill mill scene in New Orleans, that was like actually totally insane. So I've seen all those cultures, and I know how the opioid addicts, what they're sort of going through, all that sort of a thing. So that's the only reason I say that.
Okay. From your experience, not limited to, but including working in the government, would you say that you were, when you were in that administration, on a good track of making, of accomplishing things, making progress? And I almost hate to ask what you think, how you think that's going now. And I'm not trying to slam, any administration. But I know that before Trump left office, I believe he passed something that was the X waiver. that would allow many doctors to prescribe, among other things, Suboxone, whereas that used to be only a few select doctors who had the proper training, which might not be a bad idea, but I think the Biden administration took that away. But to get back to my original question, would you say that a lot of good things were happening, and like our conversation this morning, action steps that people can take with laws and then other things that are in force? What's your recommendation for some action?
Well, number one, I mean, I'm very familiar with the X waiver, what you're talking about. I was sort of in on those discussions. I could get behind the scenes on that. In a weird sort of a way, people are might disagree. Some people on one side, other side. I don't know if Biden did that out of spite, the Biden administration, but part of me supports them for what they did as far as the X waiver, and I can totally explain that if you want me to.
Sure, please.
You want me to?
Yes.
There's a little bit of a misnomer out there. Generally, also around the say MAT and Suboxone in particular. I don't want to single out a brand name. They generally just say buprenorphine, but it's Suboxone. They sort of act like if they only had more the merrier, everybody would sort of be happy and ready to go.
Right.
The thing is, Suboxone will get you intoxicated. It does have a point in it. Most of the people, they don't quite get this. And I used to tell them in SAMHSA when I was there, I said, if you really want to see a savvy population, go to like an inner city Narcotics Anonymous meeting, or actually go and intermingle with a lot of these people. So when I was working as a clinician, I would carry a caseload. The little unknown secret they don't get, most of those guys have already been on and off Suboxone quite a bit. I've had sort of shooting it before. Crushing, and they traded for dope. There is like a high level of abuse potential with it, and it's known. And most of the people who are opioid addicts, addicted enough to actually warrant Suboxone, are actually a very savvy population. Generally more savvy people, even though the government people think a lot of times they know more. Always get half of it. So when I was working in treatment, I was extended care. One of the more iffy things you would do was when somebody get hurt and they would have to go to the doctor. So and until and I kind of thought that we should keep the, just so everybody knows, the X waiver is 8-hour training that a physician would have to go through before they could prescribe Suboxone to treat an opioid use disorder. That's what it is. When they got rid of X waiver, what they did was they removed that additional training for doctors to where they can all sort of prescribe it. At the time, a lot of doctors don't even prescribe to their limits, and you have like, is it like 30? I know I'm drawing a blank on the limits, but it was 30. I think always 100 clients they can sort of see, and what you're doing is you're creating a whole specialty of medicine. So so generally most doctors, unless they had some sort of training, don't quite understand the disease of addiction. And so when you're talking to like the DA and some of these other, we're pretty mindful about not creating a whole different type of pill mill to where Suboxone is flying. So against it until doctors, like in medical school, get the training to actually understand the disease of addiction. There were some people on my side that preferred them to actually do the 8-hour training course before they prescribed. Now, there's people on my side that agree with me on that, and there's people on my side of the aisle that agreed with me. So I was on the side that we actually vamp up medical training about the disease of addiction. We'll just keep this in place until something better arrives, until we just start pulling that down and just allowing free-flowing Suboxone out on the street.
Yes, I tend to agree with that perspective as well. At first, when I read that, not too many months ago, I thought it was a good thing, partially because of the corruption that some of those quote-unquote doctors with that special license, some of the guys that you have to go in there and pay them cash, and then they'll write you a prescription for this expensive drug. That's not good. But if it's not done with the proper support in place, then yes, it can be abused, and it is abused.
Right. But in what they would do with this law, now Biden and then put it back. So I'll say that's the one time I agree with what they did.
Yeah.
Good. They generally don't. And I was like arguing. I've been at the meetings, and I was saying we shouldn't do this. There's other high-level people side. So right. I would say our administration on our side of the aisle, we weren't all in agreement on this. Mm-hmm. So I when I said that, there's a whole psychology and behavioral manifestations of addiction, I would expect, or I would want somebody to actually, who's prescribing a mood-altering substance to somebody, to actually understand some of that and to have some training in that.
That's right.
And I come out of the, like I said, I come out of the pill mill scene, and I've been to a pill mill, and I know how it works. Mm-hmm. And then I also, I text my, I got some, younger former clients that are still out in the treatment field and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And they and then I know for a fact, like one of my buddies was like getting Suboxone in the morning and running out and getting meth later in the day, So I agree. I prefer that, to have some sort of control, like you just mentioned.
That's right.
Some support to go.
Yes.
Go with it.
Yeah.
That's my.
We're going to take a short break here, Art. Before we do, though, I would like to introduce you to a friend of mine who came down to the studio. His name is Wayne Ray. And
Hey.
Wayne has been operating a number of recovery houses here in southeastern North Carolina and northern South Carolina for about 20 years. And he's got an interesting story himself. So I just wanted to introduce
Art
great. To Wayne and Wayne to Art.
Hey, Art.
Hey, how you doing?
Great. You know what?
Are we on the air now, or
yes, yes, we're about to take a break. So, but Wayne wanted to ask you a question, I think.
Now I heard you were talking about your experience on the street. I was just wondering, did you ever remember the term stumble biscuit?
Is that the Quaaludes?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
That's right. So you're for real. Okay, I know you're for real now.
He was testing your credentials there.
And I met Dan. I met Dan at an event up at McShin Foundation this fall, and that was
the McShin people again. Yeah, that's North Carolina.
They're in Southern Virginia, and we're in North Carolina. So I go up there quite a bit to see John. He's a good friend of mine.
Yeah, they had a really great.
Yep.
Hey, Art, we're going to take a short break now, and when we come back, there's a number of things that I'd like to discuss. Possibly, do a small segment on the effects of the lockdown. And these are some notes I took in your interview with Dr. Drew. And I like this line: treatment for diseases below the neck need to be handled the same as above the neck. I thought that was a good term. So we're going to take about 2 minutes, and we'll be right back with you. Okay?
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Besides my involvement in Prodigal recovery, I'm also in the construction business. I say that to say this. When we have tropical storms or hurricanes, the real hard, difficult, expensive, and dangerous work is usually the result of trees falling on homes or other personal property. Hurricane season is not the only time to get prepared for this. As a matter of fact, it's before and after hurricane season that you need to get prepared. My son Chris started his tree business called ClimbPro Expert Tree Care after Hurricane Florence. Chris has all the equipment and manpower to take on even the most challenging jobs. With over 20 years of combined experience, ClimbPro LLC can safely remove any unwanted hazardous trees from your property. They also offer tree pruning, elevation, deadwood removal, and other expert tree care services. Don't wait until you have a tree emergency. Visit climbpro.com, that's climb with a K. Check them out on Facebook or call Chris Marcley at 910-540-5249. Mention this ad for a 10% discount.
When it's time to get something done, and you've done your due diligence to find the best vendor, it's time to say, just do it. Well, there are a few things we need to do from time to time, and that is to move. Whether it's moving that overstuffed garage to climate-controlled storage or moving across the nation, the company to choose is Just Move It Moving and Storage. Stetson Strickland, owner and founder of Just Move It, takes pride in his work and is hands-on with every move and offers full 100% carte blanche service, or you pack and they carry. Junk removal, site cleanups, if it involves moving things, this is your one-stop company. They also give back to the community. Unwanted furniture goes into storage, and every month they donate it to those in need in the community. So, if you're ready to make that move or just get a quote, Just Move It can be reached at 910-795-7658 or on the web at movingcompanywilmingtonnc.com. Just call them.
You're the God of this city, you're the King of these people, you're the Lord of this nation, you are, you're the light in this darkness, you're the hope to the...
And welcome back to Recovering Hope. Thank you for tuning in, folks. And let me just remind you, if you'd like to reach out to me or to Wayne, well, we'll get the message posted. You can reach me. The email is mark@recoveringhope.org. And for this show or other podcasts, the website is, you guessed it, recoveringhope.org. And now back to our special guest, Dr. Art Kleinschmidt. You there, Art?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I think that's a little bit better.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. Sorry if that came out unclear. So,
yeah, I wasn't sure if it was this end or your end or what, but I just, but that does.
Well, it's pouring rain here. But,
oh, it is. Okay, and you're in. Are you DC now? You said.
I'm in DC. Yeah.
Okay.
It's been a bad day all day with the weather.
Oh, has it? Yeah. Well, like I said before, we took a little break there. You know, there's a whole lot of things that we can talk about, but you know, these 45-minute spots tend to go quickly for some reason. But as I mentioned to you this morning on the phone, I can ask you a ton of questions, but what I would like you to share is what you know, somebody not only in the business, but with your personal experience. You know, the intent of this program is to share hope, and you're a great story of that. What do you think our listeners need to know, not just, you know, hope by itself, but just as, you know, you got people listening that, you know, their son, daughter, husband, wife, or maybe themselves, they're in a tough spot. They don't know where to turn. What would your advice be, Art?
Well, I remember, like, when I used to have to do a lot of family counseling also in my career. And so, like, one of the things I do tell people, it's not really sort of the cliche or whatever, but it was something that sort of worked for me. I tell them that, you know, first of all, sort of keep the faith.
Yes.
That nobody, and I've written this when I had to write talking points for like higher level people, but I always try to drive home the point: nobody is too sick that they can't recover. So I really want people to. I always try to drive that home. Keep the faith that nobody's too sick that they can't recover. So you know, and you never know. Like I always kind of sometimes go with like planting seeds, but you never actually know what thing could actually work to trigger and move somebody from point A, or when they sometimes the lights go off in their head and they realize, you know, wait a minute, maybe I sort of need a change. So, and those miracles, you know, they happen. They happen every day. They happen all the time. Yeah. So even if somebody's like really sort of down and out, I you know, you don't want to enable them, you know, or enable the disease, but you could always sort of give them a help up and understand that this person that you're seeing right now, could actually sort of be a beacon for somebody else at some point in time.
Right.
When I was counseling, we did a lot of 12-step stuff, but I didn't tell somebody that okay, now your mission is to go live at that AA meeting. What I try to say is, and what I used to always sort of say is, everybody has talents, abilities, and resources, right? Nobody comes to life empty-handed. And if you look at the disease of addiction, what it really is, it's a thief. And it robs people of these abilities. So what we're trying to do when we kind of get into recovery is we're trying to allow you to take these abilities, these resources, these talents that you have, and learn to start to apply it to life. And that's kind of where I kind of try to always sort of go with people when I was talking to them. And I would say that sort of with parents too. Now, or family members, and and I kind of a little rule of thumb, and it was one of the things I wanted to do when I was in the administration. Is start, I wanted to kind of run some on the difference between enabling and helping people. But and sometimes in my counseling, I would have to work that out with like parents and family members as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are some good points. There is a big difference between helping and enabling, and I think one way that it was put to me was, helping somebody is doing something for them that they cannot do themselves. Enabling is doing something for someone that they can do themselves. And
right, and that's true. Like, or if you're doing something that they can do for themselves, because and they're not doing it because they're actually using or getting high. You're not helping this person, right? Mm-hmm. So you're actually enabling the disease at that point. But in your show, that instilling hope is almost like the number one thing. Yeah. And you never know what could sort of, like I'm saying, have somebody have the light bulb go off in their head to where they actually sort of have that moment to where, this isn't working for me. Yeah. And that's where I would sort of go with it. It's like you have a life to live, and that's what we're trying to do here. So you can experience joy, love, and all that sorts of things that addiction takes from you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Art, I wanted to ask if there was one thing that you could have gotten done at your previous job in the previous administration, but you weren't able to get done. If you had a miracle happen and you were able to go back and do that thing, what would it be, and how would you measure it?
Well, I don't know how I would measure it, but I would like to have had an honest discussion on the difference between helping and enabling.
Like you just said.
And I look at that. Yeah, that's one thing. But the other thing, and I'll circle back to it in a second. But I wanted to do it more from almost like a macro type of level. When I look at like the homeless communities, say in like Los Angeles, San Francisco, and I look at a lot of these policies they're putting forth. Sometimes I talk Kensington, Philadelphia, whatever. I see these policies where they think they're helping people, but really what they're doing is incubating the disease. So what I really wanted to do was to try to address some of those things and actually look at it from the prism of what how I just decided the difference between enabling and helping. Because I know when you look at the sort of the California, Los Angeles, there actually people are traveling there to actually be in the disease-ridden sort of areas that they have in the homeless community. Wow. And being like a licensed therapist, being self-destructive isn't okay with me. Like I said, every one of those people has talents and abilities, and they're just actually being robbed of that. So it's all about sort of, if I was going to say I don't know whether people like the 12 steps or that, but, the moment that you could actually admit powerlessness over sort of your addiction is the moment you start to get power and control back over your life. And then from there, you could start actually doing things that you never thought were possible. So, trying to define these certain policies within that realm was something I wanted to do. The other thing, and I have to sort of say this, is there's no other way around it. Would have been like border enforcement, and I was starting to kind of put some from the drug coming across the border. Now, I worked when I was at ONDCP. We have a supply side and a demand side that we worked on. And so the supply side is dealing with the cartels. I had a high-level clearance to look at that information about the cartel south of the border. And I wanted to actually start working on doing some things that kind of increase border enforcement. Because the way I see it now is what happened with the opioid crisis is we unlocked all these pain medicines, these opioid pain medicines that were just allowed to go rampant into the country. By the time they started shutting that down, the border was open, and the drug cartels were happy to backfill that demand with the heroin, right? And now it's actually the synthetic opioids, which I could circle back to. So really what it looks like is if you lower the boundaries on people and you start to increase the supply, we're going to get skyrocketing deaths and consequences, which we're seeing now. Yeah. So those are the two things I would wanted to do. But look at the public policies that's incubating the disease and then shut down or do a better job of controlling the drug cartels. And I've been to the border twice, coming across the border.
Have you ever read the book Dreamland? Are you familiar with that book?
I'm very familiar with the book. I've had coffee with Sam or lunch with him, and I had to. And so that book is accurate. And then I did when I was talking to him. I said, "How did you get so accurate?" Because I worked as, like I said, I was in the opioid crisis, and then after I got sober, and then I started, you start getting a lot of heroin people coming in as my clients. I said, how did you get so accurate in your book? Because I lived through it. He had it right. Like people were paying people to go to the doctor, and there was a going rate for that, right? So if somebody would franchise themselves, and they'd say one dubious guy, he could have 5 clinics, and he could put them all in various different parts of town, which is what they did. So the going rate was they only took cash. I would get some guy who's also addicted to drugs. I would pay for his visit, and then I'd pay for his drugs. He would get at the pharmacy, and then he got to keep half. Now, I thought that was strictly a New Orleans thing at the time, and I thought all this was New Orleans corruption. But Sam had that in his book, so that was like, how did he know that? So I said, well, how did you know that, right? Because he's not an addict. He said, well, he would go to the recovery organizations, go to Alno clubs, and talk to the people. And he said they were happy to tell him all their story and everything. And he actually did great investigative work on the cartels and how that was working and their different business model. Because I was getting clients who were like on sort of the back end of that business. So, so yeah, I'm very familiar with the book. It's a great book.
Yeah, I've heard that book a number of times. I know Wayne's mentioned it a couple of times with me. Some other people I've spoken with. I think it's time that I read that book. So yeah, I think
it's worth it. Yeah, it's worth it.
Yeah, it talks about the intentionality of the cartels. Of they're bound and determined to get across that border and get dope into our small towns, medium-sized towns, and our large cities.
And unfortunately, that's just gotten a lot easier, I believe.
Oh, it's gone now. I mean, I don't see any constraints at the moment. No. But yes, I've been to the border. I did one trip, and it was very interesting. I met with these shadow wolves. Well, part of the border, this was been in Arizona. It's very mountainous, sort of deserty down there. And the shadow wolves they're in a Native American tribe, and they're expert trackers. So what they do is they track the coyotes and the human traffickers and the illegals sort of coming across the border. And talking to them, it was pretty fascinating. One was telling me, they see dead bodies out there all the time, and they're telling me how they do it. In the cartels, they've got it to a science. They would put spotters up in the mountains. They would entertain the spotters up there with drugs, women, and that sort of a thing. They would monitor all the border patrol activities. They would sort of report back. They would, of course, they do tunnels. They come through drains. They would actually sometimes they would have like cannons and shoot the drugs over. And so it's they got it down to a science. They put carpet on their feet as not to leave tracks. Yeah. The only part of it, and that you could sort of see on them is their eyes. And we were doing a round table, and then they had like one of their cameras that was off. They wouldn't tell you where it was. This was like a big border patrol round table we were having. But they had the live camera, and then sure enough, while we're doing a round table, you see two guys with big, huge backpacks, and, they're full of drugs, all in camouflage. The only thing you're sort of seeing, we'll kind of watch them in real time sneaking across the border. So that was, so right now it's really open. I mean, it's sort of open season, and I did a helicopter ride to see where the border was and everything. So I've been down in Texas, and I went into Arizona to watch, and it's very scientific. And every inch of that border is controlled by a plaza boss. Right? And so they had to sort of divide it. Nobody gets across that border without the cartel's permission.
Yeah, I see
that.
On
the Mexican side.
In the interview I think you did with Dr. Drew, I think you said that the either we control our borders or the cartels and their plaza bosses will. Wow.
Exactly.
Wow.
That's exactly true.
Wow. Amazing.
Now, right now, I should be having a caravan van, but yes, every part of that, from the human trafficking, human smugglers, and they're not kind. They're very... sort of they're ruthless people, sort of when they're doing that. So, like, even if they think, like the people were telling me, a coyote's got their back and whatever, they'll leave them stranded out there sometimes, too. And getting across it, it's not easy country to get across. I'm trying to put that into your mind. That was like in Arizona. But it was the Rio Grande where I went to, and I was in Texas. And, also, but just like you said, they're bound and determined. I mean, they got it down to a science to feed this country with the drugs.
It's unfortunate. I sure hope that we can close that hole, or as much as we can. This is one thing that I say occasionally on the program. If you're out in a boat and it springs a leak, you can't just bail the water. You've got to plug the hole. And we have just opened.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy. Yeah. And basically, that's how the opioid crisis started, with like an influx of this addictive chemical to just kind of all of a sudden just appear on the scene. I can't impress it how it was. It was a night and day difference.
But it's only 1%. Only 1% will get addicted. Yeah. Believe it, I'll tell you another one.
I mean, it took over overnight. I mean, it was ludicrous that was sort of going on. And it's the same thing. Instead of the pill, I mean, everything's just going to be kind of flowing south to the border. And then with a lot of these policies, we're removing boundaries, healthy societal boundaries on people.
Let me get to decriminalization, Art. A couple of minutes on that. What do you think? I mean, I've heard, I'm sure you have too, the Portugal model. What's your take on decriminalization? And if we have enough time, I'd also like to talk a little bit about harm reduction. But let's start with decriminalization, if you can.
Well, I've written a couple op-eds. Sort of. I'm not for it per se. Part of because I don't want to be a broken record about the pill mills, but everybody who actually had, let's say you had like 30, well, actually it was 90, 90, and 90, so you get a 90-day supply.
Right.
But and so 90 of each drug, right? So all of that opioid crisis was all decriminalized. If you had a fraudulent prescription and you got pulled over by the New Orleans Police Department, and you had a bunch of OxyContin sitting in that pill bottle, they wouldn't do anything. Right? So it was totally sort of decriminalized. And basically...
Now, was that the way it was? Was that the way it was in New Orleans?
That's the way it was all over the country that actually experienced this.
Oh, I didn't know that.
All of these pills are basically decriminalized because you had a legitimate prescription, however legitimate it really was.
Okay, I see. If it was your prescription, not somebody else's. Okay, that's where I misunderstood.
Well, it was an account. I mean, even if it was in a prescription pill bottle, it's pretty hard to sort of prosecute or any of that. They'd give it back to you. So all of this sort of started with a period of decriminalization. When they started pumping out the opioid pain medicines, it was basically, this was all decriminalized. It actually took them a number of years to put these people out of business. Because basically it was legal. So if you watch the pharmacist, the reason they couldn't really put Jacqueline Cleggett out of business is because she was abiding by the law, believe it or not. Wow. So all those people waiting in line were actually sort of legal. So if you want to do a decriminalization, and what I'm trying to say is, one of the things I was wanting to do was to create a better sort of intervention system that that would actually get people from point A, active addiction, into treatment. So that's kind of like my decriminalization. And the way I sort of see it, like with Measure 110 in Oregon, even though they sort of what they say, it looks very dubious. I'm a guy who did public assessments before in my career, and that as an intervention is so you either like that intervention, you get caught in the amount of drugs that they can have is rather staggering. I wrote this in one of my op-eds. So you can have up to 2 grams of cocaine, and then either pay $100 or do a quick health assessment. So that's pretty sort of decriminalized, and I don't see that as going very well. And I say that as a person, who's been through it on both sides of the equation, as an addict and as a recovering addict working with people in treatment.
Yeah. Okay. And real quick on harm reduction, when I'm fairly new in this business, I still am. I've only been at it less than 4 years. When I first went to a meeting and I heard about harm reduction, my gut was, that's not good. And then I got a little more education. I thought it was better, but I spoke to a gentleman who's going to possibly speak on this next week. His name is Michael Gray. Matter of fact, he was on last week, and he has a different perspective on it, but I'd like to hear yours. And I know that that's a kind of a broad topic.
Well, first of all, that was like one of the ones I wanted to do, right?
Oh, good.
You say what I wanted to do, I kind of wanted to at least stress that.
Okay.
Because right now, harm reduction is kind of seriously undefined in any meaningful way. So like any therapist, like I worked with people who had multiple overdoses, really hardcore cases. So you have to do, I want them to get sober and that sort of a thing. But you always have to do some harm reduction, right? So with them, you can't do the line of work without actually doing some of that, and I would have them come back to my office and let them, but and I would see them around town because I was like in a small town, and as long as they were managing and doing okay, I was happy with it. So everybody has to do some harm reduction. Now, when you look at sort of the harm reduction, I don't know what your guest is going to say, but like some people in the government and policies really like needle exchanges type of thing. So that's a type of harm reduction in of itself, because basically you'll give them a needle, therefore they have a clean needle. They're not reusing a needle. They're not going to pick up as much Hep C or any sort of a communicable disease. So that's like a version of harm reduction. The problem with some of that is they don't really hold the person accountable. So that's why you're seeing so many needles on the streets, or you hear about that so many needles on the streets in San Francisco, Los Angeles, because they're not necessarily needle exchange programs. They're just kind of giving needles to people. And I could see some of that, but I'm also, as an addict, I wouldn't be beyond sometimes telling somebody, then go snort your dope if you didn't bring me back a dirty needle. So I kind of go, you have to do some of it, and then I know they want to do sort of safe injection sites, which I have a sort of a little bit of a different opinion on as well. Yes. And I don't know, I know that the administration I was in was against that. I'm predicting that we're going to start seeing some of those. I think Philadelphia might have one, and I talked to some people. I know California, Portland probably have some secret ones that are sort of going on as well. And I do think those things, and then I know that there's certain, I'm pretty well versed that there's certain like policy, I don't call them laboratories or what you would call them institutes, that are really sort of driving and pushing this thing. And I do don't really like the normalization of what I'm seeing as a very sort of self-destructive type of disease, right? So that's kind of did that answer your question?
It did, and we've only got less than a minute here, Art. But I think that what you just said there, is the difference between helping and enabling, and to have these shooting ranges, as I think maybe they're referred to, that maybe makes a difference. You're just going to have to tune in next week and listen to my conversation with Michael Gray, I guess. But Art, thank you. I mean, this 45 minutes did go very quickly, and I very much appreciate your time and look forward to staying in touch with you and learning more from you. And
yeah, please reach out again. Yeah,
I surely will.
It came out clear.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you very much, and look forward to touching base again.
Yeah, thank you for your time and everything. Yeah, yeah.
Pleasure is mine.
Okay, you take care.
All right, you too.
Thanks,
okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
Goodbye.
And a very interesting conversation here, and again, I'm just so thankful. And Dan Schneider, the pharmacist, put me in touch with Art, and there will be more good information to come down the road, and especially down next week's road. We're going to hear again from our friend Michael Gray, who's going to go into some detail on what he has referred to as the new paradigm. And I didn't get to speak to Art about fentanyl, but this is a game changer, and it has been for quite a number of years. And a week from next Wednesday, we will hear from an associate of Art's, a woman named Virginia Krieger, and she also has done a lot of work. They're both very, very involved in this industry. They have a lot of good information to share, and we so look forward to that. Well, Wayne, thanks for coming down. Good to see you again.
See you.
And folks, once again, if you need to reach out to me, please, anytime, 338-3795 or mark@recoveringhope.org. Thank you, and God bless.
Bringing you the best local talk radio shows, Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7 FM, WFBT, Carolina Beach.